Hey there, everyone. Welcome to Gryphon Aerospace. I am Reuben Garcia, your host. With over 30 years in many facets of aerospace and aviation, I also teach Part 147. I've been an active AandP IA for over 30 years. I created this channel, these podcasts, to help my own students bridge the gaps between the lecture and practical application. So while the content is AI synthesized, it is 100% created using my actual lesson plans, my lecture notes, and my course materials. The content is for listening entertainment and educational theory only, though, so be mindful of that, please. It doesn't replace FAA-approved data or current regulations. Always consult your approved data sources. Please make sure you subscribe, like, and hit that notification bell, and let's get started.
Okay, let's lay the foundation. Airworthiness isn't based on just one rule. It's actually a structure built on 3 interconnected regulations that answer 3 very different but equally critical questions. So here's the best way to think about it. Part 91, that's the when. When is maintenance due? Part 65 is the who. Who is legally authorized to do this work and, more importantly, sign it off? And Part 43, that's the how. How exactly must this work be performed to meet the standard? See? Each part has its own lane, and when you put them all together, there's really no room left for guesswork. All right, let's jump into our first component, Part 91. And here's the thing you have to remember. The legal responsibility for the maintenance plan starts with the aircraft owner, or the operator, not the mechanic. You see, this regulation isn't about how to turn a wrench. It's all about the mandatory events and the time intervals that trigger the need for maintenance in the first place. It really dictates the rhythm of an aircraft's life, just making sure it gets inspected at exactly the right time. Now, this lays out the most common schedules you'll see. Every private aircraft, no exceptions, needs an annual inspection. If that same aircraft is used for hire, think flight instruction or maybe some on-demand charter ops under Part 135, it's also going to need a 100-hour inspection. But Part 91 also gives owners another option, the progressive inspection, and we're going to get into that in just a bit. Now, this whole structure works great for general aviation, but it does bring up a pretty important question. What happens when you scale up in size and complexity? Can a large passenger jet really just follow a once-a-year inspection plan? And the answer is a hard no. This slide shows you the exact point where things change. Part 91 makes it clear, once an aircraft is over 12,500 pounds, or it's a multi-engine turbojet, those standard schedules just aren't enough. These bigger, more complex aircraft have to use a custom FAA-approved program. This is the world of commercial airlines operating under Part 121, who use incredibly detailed systems like a Continuous Airworthiness Maintenance Program, or CAMP, to manage their fleets. Okay, so Part 91 has set the schedule. An inspection is officially due. Now we pivot to Part 65, which defines the who. This regulation is all about the people, specifically who has the legal authority and the certified privilege to do the work and, most critically, to approve that aircraft for return to service. This right here is one of the most important distinctions in all of aircraft maintenance. A certified airframe and power plant mechanic, an AandP, can do a lot, including a 100-hour inspection. But what they can't do is sign off on an annual inspection. That authority is reserved for a mechanic holding an inspection authorization, or IA, which is a whole other level of privilege and responsibility. So, why does an annual need an IA? Well, because it's so much more than just a mechanical checkup. It's a comprehensive legal audit. The IA is putting their name on the line, legally attesting that the aircraft conforms to its original design, its type certificate, and that all the mandatory safety updates, which we call airworthiness directives, are done. It is a deep, deep dive into the aircraft's legal and physical health. So, we have the when from Part 91 and the who from Part 65. The final piece of our puzzle is Part 43, the how. This part is the universal rulebook. It makes sure that no matter when the work is done or who signs for it, the quality and the standard of that work are consistent and meet the FAA's strict safety requirements. Part 43 lays out the non-negotiable standards. The performance rule in 43.13, that's really the cornerstone. The aircraft has to be returned to a condition that's at least equal to how it was originally. Appendix D is literally the checklist for an annual or 100-hour, detailing every single system that has to be examined. And crucially, 43.16 says that if a manufacturer has an airworthiness limitations section, those instructions aren't suggestions, They are the law and must be followed. Now that we've looked at each part on its own, let's see how they all work together as a seamless system. And we'll use that progressive inspection we mentioned earlier, because it's a perfect real-world example of this regulatory dance. Here's the play-by-play. First, under Part 91, the owner writes the plan and gets it approved by the FAA, naming an IA as the supervisor. Then, under Part 65, that IA provides the legal oversight for the whole program. Next, a certified AandP mechanic does the individual phases of the inspection, all under that IA's supervisory umbrella. And finally, through every single phase, Part 43 dictates the quality, making sure the mechanic follows all the required standards, like that Appendix D checklist. And here's the key takeaway. A progressive inspection is not a loophole to get out of an IA's involvement. It's a way to completely change the nature of their involvement. Instead of one massive event once a year, the IA becomes a continuous supervisor overseeing the airworthiness of that aircraft throughout the entire cycle. It's a fundamental shift from an annual audit to continuous oversight. This all brings us to one final, absolutely vital concept that this whole system is built on: the very clear separation of roles and responsibilities. It's a system of checks and balances, where the aircraft owner and the inspector have completely distinct legal duties. This chart really pulls it all together. You've got the owner, the operator, right? They're living in the world of Part 91, and their job is to ask, is it time for an inspection? That's their primary responsibility. Then you have the AandP or the IA, governed by Part 65. Their question is this person authorized to sign for this work? And finally, the mechanic actually doing the work is guided by Part 43, asking, does this work meet the standard? It's a perfect system where every actor has a very clear, legally distinct role to play. And that leaves us with a pretty big question looking forward. This trio, the plan, the people, the method, it's been the bedrock of aviation safety for decades. But as aircraft systems rely more and more on software and complex electronics, how are these foundational rules going to evolve? Will those airworthiness limitation sections in Part 43 become the new legal battleground for ensuring safety in a digital age? Well, that's the challenge facing regulators, owners, and technicians right now.